Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Proactive Security Considerations and Approaches. My name is Sarah Berry. I am a security manager within AWS Security, and with me here today is Eric Doctor, the Vice President of the Software Builder Experience here at AWS.
Hi, yes, and I'm Eric, and let's get the elephant out of the room right now. I lost my voice. It's like my 7th reinvent, and I feel like a complete rookie. But we're gonna power through it anyway. Hopefully the tea will help me come back a little bit. I've been in Amazon 23 years. I've worked in almost all of our different divisions. When I joined Amazon, I'm gonna try to tone it down a little bit. Maybe I can talk a little lower, it'll come up. Yeah, that'll work. Sorry, it's gonna be an adventure. When I joined Amazon, we were just selling books at the time, DVDs, CDs. We had just launched our electronics store, and I helped launch our marketplace products. We got a third-party selling business. I worked on our Fire Phone, which our CEO called our most amazing failure, but cool note about Fire Phone, some of that technology wound up used in the mapping apps that our delivery drivers use today, and the customer service apps that supported customer service on Fire Phone wound up being part of Amazon Connect. So really cool stories to see how that, oh look, the voice is warming up, awesome. Really cool to see how some of that technology got used in other places at Amazon. I joined AWS in 2015. I was leading the AWS cryptography organization, and I will say right now, here we are in a security talk. Wow, my voice is really good. This is gonna work great. And I'm not a security expert, even though I worked in our cryptography division. I really was there helping us build products to help customers like you get security right. So our KMS, our key management service, we help really get encryption easy in the cloud. And I'm all about making things easy for end customers. And that led me to my new role in the software builder experience team, which I'll tell you about over the course of this talk. Outside of work, 3 kids, all very excited to get going on ski season. And Sarah, you also have 3 kids, right?
I do. And when AWS isn't keeping me busy, they're there at home doing the same thing. I have about 1/7 the tenure of Eric at AWS. Fun fact, I have been with the same team, with the same exact manager for just under 4 years, same team that I got hired in on, but my role has completely evolved. I started as a technical program manager responsible for the security of our end-of-life hardware within our data centers. And now I'm a manager of security engineers that are responsible for securing the products and services built to support our data center infrastructure. So that's enough about us. You're probably wondering what you're going to take away from our session here today. To start, we're going to walk you through some of the ways that different teams can work together. Builder organization, security organization, to help ship your software securely. We'll also talk about the data and information you could decide to use to make sure that you can eliminate some of that friction that your builders are experiencing during the security process. We'll also address what undifferentiated building we can eliminate from the beginning to give our builders the opportunity to focus on those high-value activities we really want them to focus on. We'll also tell you how to measure success when it comes to the positive builder experience between both security and the builder. So Eric, can you give us a little bit of information about your organization?
Sure, and we'll see if the voice warms up again. Every time I pause, I'm gonna lose it. So to tell you about Amazon Software Builder Experience and our organization, I wanna take folks back to December 9th, 2021. Show of hands in a security room. Hope some people remember December 9th? Yeah. For those people who don't remember, that was the day that Log4j broke. We all found out we had a 0 day. We all had to swarm it. And at Amazon, we're really good at swarming. We know, look, we've been running a consumer website since 1995. We know how to drop everything and swarm and address issues for end customers, be they availability issues. In this case, it was a security issue. Or anything. We're really good at operational events, in our DNA. But let me tell you about this one in particular. On December 9th, we wound up paging 17,000 frontline software engineers. And those 17,000 software engineers were asked to obviously deploy the fix, and to do so, those 17,000 human beings took 1.2 million manual steps in our build tools. It's just mind-boggling. And we look back, so what does that look like? A manual step would be anything from importing the package, kicking off a build, kicking off a deployment, moving a stuck deployment that has failed for some deployment safety or test reason, addressing that. So that's what our builders were doing on December 9th. And when you look at this for what turned out to be like a one-line change, and you ask yourself, oh my goodness, how do you have to have 17,000 people get involved to make a one-line? Sure, it's millions and millions of servers. Sure, Amazon and AWS scale is really big. We have servers everywhere. But still, like, how did you make it that hard on yourself, Amazon? It's a very good question. We asked ourselves that too. And every event like this is a learning opportunity. And when we looked at it, we realized what we had learned, what we had done to ourselves is Amazon's leadership principles are famous. We have this ownership leadership principle, and we want all of our software teams to deeply own the code and the applications that they build and they deploy and they manage for customers. We want them to understand everything that goes into that application, including the logging package. But it turns out on December 9th, most of those software engineers, like, I don't really care what logging package, I just want my logs to work. Someone else who's an expert can do that. And we realized our ownership model had really pushed too far that ownership of things deep into the teams it created redundant work. So stepping back from that event, and we were looking at other reasons why we had developed some inefficiencies in how we build and deploy. We stepped back and we realized we had some work to do internally to be more efficient. We never want to compromise how, of course, we're going to deliver for our customers. We're not going to compromise on security. Sarah won't let us, or availability or all of our principles, but we could be more efficient. So my team was started in February of this year to think about how we could be more efficient, how we could deliver better for builders while we still deliver for all of our end customers. Just a little quick tour of our organization. We really have 6 areas of things we're focusing on. First, as that story really illustrates, we have to really radically reduce the cost of managing our software and managing mandatory updates. And so automation for patching, and we'll talk a little bit about that later, and really help our builders, something that AWS says to its customers a lot, removing undifferentiated heavy lifting. We have to do the same thing for our software builders. They really weren't interested. They wanted someone to help them with the best, what's the best logging package? Just deploy it for me, please. So we have to radically reduce that. Another area that we have to focus on, and this will be a theme in a lot of things you hear me say today, is we in Amazon and AWS, especially in the lower level AWS services, don't always have the opportunity to build on AWS because we can't take circular dependencies. So routine infrastructure tasks that AWS customers can do with a service like CloudFormation, well, we can't do that in the CloudFormation service. Things like provisioning accounts and VPCs in our internal infrastructure. We have our developers manually doing this over and over again every time we do a region build. We have to really help them automate that, so that's another focus of our team. A third focus, again, which really goes to going back to the Log4j event, if you ran a container-based application or a Lambda application, you didn't get paged on December 9th. Somebody else took care of that for you. And that was really illustrative, and it should be illustrative to everybody here too. We want to help our software builders build on the right level of abstraction. We don't need to be running at the operating system level all of our applications. They don't need that level of optimization. Some of them do. Many do not, and we want to help them move to the right level of abstraction using AWS where available. Our fourth area, and this is really internal, but I encourage you to think about this for your organizations as well. We realize there are some things in our central team that we cannot do for all of our builders, and I'll give you an example of this later, but we want to make it really transparent. So we started a team that really looks at measuring where we're great, which teams are doing great at meeting certain objectives and which teams are struggling, and helping illustrate that and showing it to builders right in the tools where they work that, they're a leader, maybe they should do a principal talk. They're lagging, maybe they should be investing in those areas. Make managing work easier. This is something internal to us. We have at a company our size, we have a lot of campaigns, a lot of cross-team issues that we need to be more efficient in how we manage. So my team manages the ticketing systems, paging systems, campaign tools. Hang on, losing it. I told you it'd be an adventure. So that's our 5th area. And then 6, we have a very large software development workforce, the ability to learn from each other, the ability to have internal trainings and understanding and change and grow your career at Amazon. We really think that's kind of unprecedented, having all of these different technologies in one roof, and our team is here to help facilitate some of that. So that's how we're approaching building and how we're approaching improving our software builder experience. And Sarah, I want you to, maybe you could help us talk about how we make better security decisions in our software teams?
Of course. So I want to touch on 2 key points first. The first is our ownership model, and that brings us to this quote that you see on the screen. This is from CJ Moses, our CISO for AWS Security. Service teams own the security of their service. AWS Security owns the security of AWS. This ownership model is critical for the way that we operate here within AWS. Our builders own the security of the services that they're building. They own the security of the businesses, of the services that they're building for their businesses. We help empower them to own that security, but AWS security as a whole owns the security of AWS. The second point I want to talk about is a concept that most of you might be familiar with. If not, I'll explain. All of Amazon operates under the 2 pizza team concept. This concept means that 2 pizzas should be enough to feed any one team within Amazon, with any one team, any one builder team. This means that our teams are small and enables them to move faster, innovate quickly. It eliminates those social constraints. This is based off the theory of Conway's law that states that organizations will design around, their designs will mirror their communication structures. So large, intersecting teams will typically design large monolithic structures and architectures. Small, distributed teams will typically build modular service architectures. So as a security organization, we want our 2 pizza teams to enable their security within the business and technologies that they own. The organization that I'm a part of is Proactive Security, where we help our builders build securely. So what does that really mean? Here at Amazon, we all know we ship packages. Marketplace ships physical packages over the road all the time securely. At AWS, we sort of do the same thing. We ship hardware packages, we ship software packages, all securely, which is what our security organization focuses on. Security is a foundational part of the customer experience, but that's not the only thing that goes into delighting you, our customers. So think about it. A service with a security issue isn't going to satisfy you, right? But on the same side, a service that hasn't launched yet doesn't even have the opportunity to delight you. So Proactive Security enables our builders to launch on time with the right customer experience at the appropriately high security bar. So in summary, we think that the best relationship between the service and builder teams means that we're helping the business deliver for our customers as fast as possible. Builders understand that they don't serve security. They don't exist to serve security. And we in AWS Security, we understand that. We both exist to serve you, our customers, and we make it easier for our building teams to do that. Now, Eric, are you ready to talk about some of the ways that you can do that?
Yeah, here we go. So the tools that we use, before we get in too much to the tools, I think we should talk about how software gets built. And I think we would start with, on the next slide, the software development lifecycle. This is something everybody knows, we know it well. But Sarah, you want to layer in something on top of this picture here?
Yeah, it's really important, if you look at this, it's really important for your security practitioners to understand the software development lifecycle. And I'm not saying the one that's just on this screen. I'm talking about the ones that are actually practiced within your organizations themselves. If you're not able to know how your builders build, how can you help them do that securely? At AWS, we decided to take our once very isolated security review process and shift it left. We wanted to incorporate it into our builder's lifecycle. You might know this, but here at Amazon, all of our services, all of our features start with a working backwards document. This is a design doc that helps our teams write threat models early, which is part of that shift left culture. And this is all great in concept, but sometimes shift left doesn't actually work in reality. Teams want to move fast, and sometimes security can't scale and keep up with it. So we learned that while shifting left is great, we had to come up with a creative solution to address it head on. To start, we were still receiving feedback that the AppSec review process was not landing our service teams, was not allowing our service teams to launch on schedule. So in finding a solution, we set a goal that would enable our teams to launch on time with that appropriately high security bar. We were still identifying findings too late in the product development lifecycle, which meant it was taking teams longer to remediate some of those findings. And so we needed to identify those risks earlier on in that lifecycle. And finally, builders were also telling us that they felt like the security review process was a little bit inconsistent and sort of ambiguous at times, so we wanted to reduce that confusion and variation. So in keeping in mind that, or we needed to do this in keeping in mind the builder to security ratio. The speed that the business wants to launch new functionalities and the speed that the business was expanding their teams was rapidly increasing. And I'm pretty sure that everyone in here probably knows, but I'm going to say it anyway, hiring security talent is very hard. Hiring and training security talent is even harder, especially for us at the AWS security bar. So with that bottleneck, with that training and hiring bottleneck, we knew we had to come up with a creative solution, but what was it? We decided we needed to embed security within our builder teams. And you're probably thinking, Sarah, how do you do that if it's hard to hire security practitioners? Well, we decided we wanted to train our builders to learn and be developed into security practitioners while not actually being them, and to understand those peculiar security practices that we have here at AWS. When we did that with at least one engineer per 2 pizza team, we saw a reduction in findings and faster time to launch. We call this our AWS Security Guardian program. So what do Guardians actually do? We train them for 4 key areas. To start, we want them to be responsible for shepherding their service teams to get through the security review process. I'm a representative of the proactive security organization, and I fully admit, and it pains me to say, that the AppSec review process is very confusing and can be hard for teams that have never done it before. So we want our guardians to be able to shepherd them, to be able to tell them what to do and what to provide to us, so we're able to provide a service once a security engineer is working on their review. Secondly, we train them to catch that low-hanging security fruit, like TLS in transit, encryption at rest. So security engineers are able to focus on those complex design considerations. Third, we want them to have a basic understanding of the AWS security anti-patterns, which are basically just best practices that are guardrails for our builders to follow. We also expect our guardians to help our service teams develop a list of high-level security concerns and mitigations, also known as a threat model. That way they're ready and prepared when it comes time for a security engineer to work with them on their review. With all that said, that by no means we don't need our security engineers. We deeply need them. They're security experts. We have network security engineers, we have application security engineers, we have red teamers. Within the proactive security organization, our special sauce is what we call the affinity model. The affinity model means we dedicate one singular security engineer for each unique AWS service. That means our security engineers are able to be embedded with our builder teams and help them understand and have a full understanding of the ecosystems, that the systems that they're designing and the services that they're building live within. They're able to have a full contextual understanding of the organizations that the services they're building within. That way they can provide feedback and guidance throughout the software development lifecycle. This is a very shift-left approach that we found to be very successful. And we're Amazon, so we love data. So let's look at some of the data points from when we started this program. So since we started, we've trained over 2,000 software development engineers on how to think about security. We've seen a reduction in high and medium findings throughout the security review process by 22.5%. That represents almost 16,000 fewer findings. Security reviews also benefited from 26.9% less time to complete, which means over 210,000 total calendar days saved. And now you're asking yourself, well, Sarah, how do I implement this? The best part about the Guardian program is that it requires zero tooling. First, identify a diverse set of guardians and set an organizational goal. What is the outcome that you're trying to drive, and who can get us to that outcome? Ramp them up with the skills and the mentorship necessary to get them started. AWS actually offers a threat modeling workshop called Threat Modeling the Right Way for Builders, which is offered on AWS Workshop Studio online. From there, build a community with continual knowledge sharing. Our builders don't really want to work in silos, and I don't think they should have to. Same goes for security practitioners. The best security engineers and practitioners that I work with calibrate. They calibrate with each other, they calibrate with other security engineers, and so encourage your builders to do the same thing. Measure, report, and recognize the Guardian effectiveness. You need to share their progress, share your progress. Even if it's incremental, any incremental progress is one risk that's not introduced into your environment, and that is a success. And finally, you'll need to develop and establish a continuous feedback mechanism with qualitative and quantitative data. So, Eric, can you tell me what you've done with your builders to make sure that they're meeting their security goals?
Absolutely. Oop, there we go. So to start, talk about some of the tools that we've made available to our builders. I want to go back to this slide and the software development lifecycle. But really, if you've managed software, you know that's not really the full lifecycle. The application lifecycle looks a lot more like this. The time you spend building and designing and deploying it, excuse me, hopefully will be a very short period relative to the life of the application. The application's going to live in production for a very long time, hopefully. And while it's living in production, you have to manage it, you have to administer it, and this is where some of the interesting security issues start to happen, like because we want to be able to keep our applications running without giving the builders access to the customer data. So one of the tools we built, we have this goal to help keep our builders manage software applications in 30 regions around the world without having to actually log in. And it turns out, actually, the security goals here are in line with the software builder's needs. The software builder does not really want to SSH into hosts around the world, pull logs from hosts from around the world. They want central tools. They want to be able to administer large fleets. So this is one of those win-wins where we can improve our security posture and make ourselves more efficient. So take you through a little tool, what we built. Internally, we call this tool Mechanic. Again, it's one of those tools that we have at a lower level to help run AWS. I'll talk to you about how you could do the same thing in AWS services. Of course, our goal is never have the pager go off. We really would rather not have to administer any application. They should just run just cleanly, right? But we know that's not the real world. So builders occasionally will need to diagnose, or they'll need to take action. And like I said, we have this tool, the Mechanic, that helps them manage this remotely. And Mechanic really has 3 magic bits, and I'll give you all 3 of those. The first thing is that builders don't have persistent access to do actions in Mechanic. They have to actually request access for a particular issue. And so we can manage who has access to what and really grant them, even in a time of crisis, okay, it's time to go administer this application for this reason. So that's part 1. Part 2, any mutating action to any production resource, even just bouncing a host or something like that, is done through a script. And that script is built outside of the event. It's been code reviewed, it's been pre-reviewed before, it's put into Mechanic. And so then the engineers have this repertoire of tools they can use that have been approved for use and reviewed beforehand. And then the third thing is that every action a builder takes in Mechanic is auditable. So we can go back and look at, okay, in this event, this is the steps that people took to get out of the event. One, can we make that more efficient? Can we figure out how to not need to go there or manage that event more automatically in the future? So those are the 3 pieces of magic with Mechanic. How can you do the same thing? You can, using AWS tooling. So as our Steve Schmidt, our Chief Security Officer, says, we really want to keep humans away from all of our customer data, which means not giving them access to the customer data. I mentioned we do that with Mechanic. In as an AWS customer, you can build this using IAM as the foundation for access. And again, not granting access to builders to production resources without having a reason to break glass. And there's an AWS security blog on this called Managing Temporary Elevated Access that I encourage you to check out. It shows how you can manage this in IAM. And then for scripting, I would point you to look at AWS Systems Manager, where you can make runbooks for any type of application support task and have it all in Systems Manager pre-reviewed and ready to go. And so gluing those two things together, granting on-the-fly access to a builder, to a Systems Manager, a runbook to take action during an event would give you the same thing that we can do internally. So that's one of our tools. Again, my voice just warms up a little and goes away. Here we go again. I mentioned one of our 6 focus areas was maintaining software. And I mentioned some of the things we're doing to try to help automate the patching. But wouldn't it be even more awesome if they never had to patch in the first place? Before I talk about this tool, I'm going to talk about, we get all sorts of, at Amazon, we have lots of applications, and we have all sorts of package upgrades. We do a lot of open source, as I imagine you do as well. And there's a lot of differential between, there's a Log4j 0-day event, and this third-party open source library has a new version of an API that enables a new feature, but it's not a security release. However, we also know from best practices that if you wait long to stack up those package imports, and there's a breaking change or a minor change, and then once you have to go, it winds up being a big deal. So we want to manage all of that third-party software and stay on top of it and keep track of the risks as they're accumulating, of how far we're falling behind. And we want to help our builders manage those out-of-date dependencies as best as possible. So we built this tool called, we're really great with internal names. It's called the Software Assurance Service. SaaS is what we call it, and helping our software teams assure that they're using the latest, greatest software for whatever reasons, for security vulnerabilities, for compliance, again, availability, or just feature upgrades. As a software builder, this is one particular team at Amazon, you can see how many packages that are running out of date, and you can see it fluctuate over time. And we want to show that to them. And again, when you look at a picture like this, know that, no, the CVEs are being driven really fast, but the team needs to know, oh, look at these packages are running out of, there's an upgrade, I should pick that up, and which sprint. They want to help with that too. So we built those tools. And of course, I don't have a tool to visual for this, but we do have the mega tool, which is like our big red button, which is if one of these things that is out of date in an application is a known CVE or an embargoed security risk, we can actually halt their deployment pipeline. And we can say the very next thing that will go out on this deployment pipeline is this package upgrade. And we can do that centrally, and teams will see that, and we'll know if we want to start shipping software again, we have to ship this thing, and we'll show them how long they have to get it before the embargo expires. So this is all in our internal tools. Another thing we did in our internal IDE is, this is an example of a builder typing in Jackson data bind. They're about to import package Jackson data bind version 2.1. Turns out, if you look at it's internal, it's not very pretty, but you can see there's a block software campaign, meaning we know there's a vulnerability with Jackson data bind 2.1. The software builder can't even submit this package update. It turns out they have to use 2.10 or later. And so we're showing our builders, speaking about shifting left, like before we even create the problem, we're stopping the builder from making this decision that is going to cause a problem later in the cycle. So how can you get started? A couple things you can do. So first of all, using AWS Inspector will help you scan for those applications that you're using, software that has known vulnerabilities, and you can script your response to that. I'd also point you to AWS Code Artifact, which has a package origin control feature. So if you're using third-party libraries and third-party package managers, you can manage how those imports happen, help your builders see those things in advance. And so keeping in mind, keeping your software update, you can script that as well. So that's what we do to help our software builders. Sarah, how do you think about measuring all this?
Well, let me start by just addressing what our VP Distinguished Engineer, Eric Brandwein, says about automation. It's the goal of every security system to maximize the delivered customer value while minimizing the cost of delivery. Let's break that down into two things. First off, customer value. Are we maximizing it? And who are our customers? The customers of the security organization are our internal builders, but also our external builders, so you all. We make it easier for our builders in our organizations to make good decisions. Ooh, I'm catching what you got.
No, sorry.
To make good decisions so they can spend more time on creating more functionalities for you. Secondly, cost of delivery. Are we minimizing it? And what does cost of delivery really, or what does minimizing it really mean? That's what the partnership between security and the builder experience organizations is all about. Reducing that toil and making it easier for our builders to get security right the first time. We do this by using automation to scale our security engineers. So at any given time during the security review process, we have 4 scanners running web and API endpoint analysis, static code analysis, and resource configuration testing. That's over 300 plus rules that we created in-house to run on our resources and accounts. This enforces the security bar across all of our security reviews and reduces the human factor there. It provides a more consistent experience for our builders and allows the issues to be found earlier in the product lifecycle. It also delivers efficiency and effectivity. It reduces that process overhead you get with cutting manual findings, doing manual tests, verifying fixes. Additionally, within AWS Security, we actually have our own team called the AWS Security Workflow Automation Team that allows teams to quickly innovate and iterate to release secure and compliant services. This brings me to Talos. So the vision of Talos is to fully automate the security engagement process to make sure we're meeting the security bar. The definition of success for Talos is that risks are never introduced. The applications are secured by default. This again is that shift-left approach that enables earlier and continuous engagement to our builders and increases that collaboration between the developers and our security experts to make our culture more security aware. Talos wants to say goodbye to security reviews and hello to security engagements. Ideally, our builders would use Talos at the beginning of their life cycle, so during planning, during design. It's interactive and it tailors itself to ask relevant questions based on the user's input, so based off of what the builder is actually putting into the tool. From there, Talos will vend out specific and actionable security tasks, so the team is actually able to work on them before a security engineer has ever even seen the review. Our goal is really to automate as much as possible, such as intake process, enumeration of resources, and real-time verification of tasks. This also brings us to the end of the security engagement, which we were able to publish a survey for our security engineers to provide feedback on our Guardian program. This allows that continuous feedback mechanisms for our Guardians themselves to understand any growth areas, any areas of strength that we might want to identify. But also it helps us identify areas of weaknesses and maybe areas that we can automate better. So I think Eric might know a little bit about tooling, so I'm going to hand it over to him to talk about measuring effectivity.
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned at the top that one of the things we have to do, here I got to warm up again. One of the things we want to do is help our builder teams. This is not happening. We want to help our builder teams when we can't automate on their behalf. We want to help them see where they can improve their experience. So we have this quote, people respect what you inspect. So we want to build tools that help them inspect and see how they're doing. And so we launched this analytics toolkit that helped our builder teams find things like how often are pipelines blocked in their organization. And we actually have this one success story that we launched in our pipeline deployment tool, a measure of how often pipelines were blocked for flaky tests and things like that. And teams could see this, and the teams that were really struggling with it actually took action. They started updating their packages more frequently, and we actually saw like a 6 or 7% reduction in the number of pipelines blocked weekly just by showing them which pipelines were kind of red, yellow, green. So it's an example of a place where we, as the central team, can't automate for them, but they could see it and fix it for themselves. So how can you get started today? Sarah and I have mentioned a bunch of things that we do here at Amazon. Before we let you go, we wanted to kind of revisit some of the 3 big things that we should take as takeaways. First, if you actually could take away one thing, it's finding those areas where you can help your builders get security right by default. Automate it, make it easy, make it right, configured right by default. We did that with SaaS, automatically keeping the data away from the hands of the engineers. SaaS was keeping the packages up to date, Mechanic keeping the data away from the engineers. You can do the same thing with AWS services. And then second part is using metrics to drive the behaviors you want.
Eric talked about how you can automate some of the security best practices, but you can't automate humans. So how are you thinking about developing your builders to be security conscious and security aware? And then last, but certainly not least, how do you incorporate measurement, or how do you measure success within your organization? Make sure to do that for your next steps. That's the end of our talk. I want to thank you all for coming. I really want to thank Eric here. This was my first reInvent. And so he was kind of like my guardian, shepherding me through this process. So I really appreciate it. And having to present together with him, the Builder Experience Vice President, really showcases to you that the security organization and builders within AWS are here to serve you and to provide the outcomes that you all are looking for.